Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. It's Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. And man, we got a crazy amount of races that Mark, for some reason, wants to get through. Um, I'm like, normally, Steven says we have problems getting through races that go, I don't know, with 5 or 6 people in them. And we have just humongous fields for this Belmont card here. So let's bring in Mr. Mark Capitan first.
I mean,
Mark,
it's the biggest weekend the biggest day of horse racing so far this year. There's a lot of really good races. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, and I know Josh thinks it's a chalk fest already, and that he's just going to pick all the Baffords, because there's always one of those people on every show. But I think some of these races are real interesting. There's definitely some smaller field races that I think we have to talk about because there's a few of them that are really deep and really competitive fields. And then I think there's some other real big fields that are you can fish around, find some prices, and there are some really interesting races. So I'm sorry, there's a lot of races, but there are a lot of good races, and we haven't had really good racing in what feels like forever.
Caleb, talk some sense into this, man.
I mean, I thought that the Derby weekend had some good races. The Preakness is always somewhat of a I won't say a letdown, but it's certainly the least of the three jewels of the Triple Crown. So I could take or leave that one. But I am excited for Belmont this weekend. I think to address the smoking elephant in the room, I hope they actually run because yeah,
That was a
it would be a
terrible
shame.
pun. I mean, that was horrible.
The smoking elephant in the room. But yeah, I mean, I think I think that's kind of where this all starts and ends. Is are they actually going to run? I mean, it seems like indications are they're optimistic, especially for Saturday. I guess we'll find out probably tomorrow morning about Friday. But yeah, I'm hoping that they can figure it out and run in a way that's safe, but also run.
Yeah, I know
Well,
Naira has that 150 particle limit thing. Road Warriors, obviously on Staten Island, saying the air is fine. I know up by me, it's well below that number, and everything I've seen in the forecast is that it will be below for Saturday. There's still a chance I think they cancel the Friday card and maybe move it to either Monday or the following weekend. But I would be at this point really surprised if the Belmont card is canceled. Josh?
so is Staten Island, is that like Roosevelt Island? Real small island. Our friend Nick lives on Roosevelt Island, and everyone gives him shit about it. So I assume all the islands are bad. Is that not how New York works?
That's
No.
not how New York.
Okay.
No,
Hey, I don't know. I don't know.
because it's all islands. They're all of them are islands.
I recorded a video earlier today for bartender Josh made an appearance, and I was going to share it on here, but apparently the video is too big to share on here, and I didn't think about it until like the last minute, so I didn't get a chance. But it's out there on Twitter. If you check it out on the Wrongly Twitter, I made a Belmont Jewel, which is the official cocktail of the Belmont Stakes. It's not the Belmont Breeze. It's also not the White Carnation anymore. It's now the Belmont Jewel. And after looking at the recipe for the Belmont Breeze, I can see why. Because the Belmont Breeze had like 20 ingredients in it, including sherry and like other stuff that I just like do not have at the house. So it's one thing to go out and buy pomegranate juice. It's another thing to go out and buy sherry and like 20 different things. So,
But you did take
sorry.
bourbon and then add other stuff to water it down. I'm a little disappointed in you.
Says the guy who drinks all his whiskey on ice. Literally watering it down with water. So, but anyways, we could sit here and dunk on Mark all night long. But we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna get started with some of these races here. So let me go ahead and pull up the old PPs here. Um, and yeah, we have the Acorn Stakes here. We're gonna start. We're gonna start with a couple of stakes on Friday. Get through these kind of. Well, I was gonna say kind of quickly, but I thought these stakes on Friday were actually a little bit more interesting than some of the ones on Saturday. Mark did say that he was super interested in some of them, but we all know Mark loves horses that are like 6 to 5 or less. So you can tell why he likes the middle part of the card on Saturday. But oh, actually, before we get into this, Caleb, I want to ask, how did your draft go?
Oh yeah, we did the draft, the third leg of our fantasy draft with Gino, Barry, and Matt last night. Yeah, Wednesday, and it went pretty well, I think. For those of you keeping score at home, I won the first 2 rounds, so I'm going for the fantasy triple crown. I'm sure all of you were very invested in this. But yeah, I ended up with I was third pick, a snake draft with four of us, obviously, between the Acorn and the Belmont. So I ended up with Pretty Mischievous, Tappet Trice, Dorth Vader, and Frosty O'Toole. So I ended up with three Acorn horses, actually, just kind of the way that it all shook out. So I like my chances, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
Yeah, so
I
you're not planning on winning the Triple Crown then with
Oh,
that?
he is because he did manage to get the winner of the Acorn in his picks there.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Well, he didn't get randomized, but he did get probably my biggest like long shot play of the entire weekend might be Frosty O'Toole.
I love Frosty
I
O'Toole to run
really
her
like
race
Frosty
there.
O'Toole in
Yeah.
this spot. But Caleb, since you drafted her, what do you like about Frosty O'Toole in this spot?
I mean, in all fairness, Pretty Mischievous was the top pick for me on my board between the Belmont and the Acorn. I think she's the most likely horse to win either race. And the reason I kind of think that is I see a lot of speed in this race in the Acorn. It looks like Darth Vader's a horse. I know she's in a new barn now, and they've tried some different things in the morning where she might try to rate, but it seems like she's a horse that typically wants to be forward. Randomized has never passed a horse. Broker Maiden Gate to Wire. A cult wants to be forward. Money's Gold seems like she just has to go. Good Girl, Bad Habits on the stretch out always made the lead. I mean, there's a lot of speed in here, it feels like. So the way I kind of looked at it is I wanted an off the pace horse, and I really thought there was only kind of two reliable ones, Pretty Mischievous and Frosty O'Toole. I think Pretty Mischievous is probably a much better win candidate to be sure, but you're going to get a sixth of the price or something crazy like that. But I do think that Pretty Mischievous ran a great effort in the Derby, or in the Oaks, excuse me. It was very wide, wasn't that far off the pace. That was pretty quick and kind of came back to the closers and still had something in the tank. So I thought she ran a good race. But bringing it back to your question, Josh, Frosty O'Toole, she should get a great trip in here. If you look at her last three races, she's been up against the pace in all of them. She's never had a fast pace. All three of her races have blue fractions on time form, indicating a slower pace. And yeah, I think that she finally gets a hot pace in here today. I think she's bred to just love this, mile and a 16th, mile and an eighth kind of a distance here. Second time in the Pletcher barn, and Sias takes over for Paco. I think that's definitely a jockey upgrade there. Some mixed signals about the Gazelle. I mean, Promise Her America, the winner, came back to do zero running in the Oaks, but Gambling Girl was a fast closing second by just a neck or a head. So I think Frosty O'Toole in here could run her race, an excellent key underneath, but even has a small chance, I would say, to actually pull off the upset. But definitely one that I would use in the bottom of your trifecta.
So she's
Yeah,
more of a stable dual play for you than necessarily a win candidate play.
She'll be on a couple of my pick fives, for example, but she's probably on that. She's probably a B for me. I'll say I like her more than a C. I would say I'd probably make her Pretty Mischievous, probably lone A, and I would probably have Frosty O'Toole as one of my two Bs. We'll say.
Okay.
yeah. I think I'm a little bit higher on randomized than you are. But I mean, like you said, there's a bit going against her, right? Because Broker Maiden at Aqueduct going wire to wire. So you got questions about that figure, which does seem to at least kind of fit, right? I mean, needs to improve obviously off of it, but lightly raced horse, coming into this part of the 3-year-old season, improvement isn't out of the question. Um, and they obviously thought a lot of this horse running her at Saratoga first. I don't know what the long layoff was after Saratoga to Aqueduct if there's a problem there, but I thought randomized of like the new shooters kind of made a bit of sense here as kind of like one of the forwardly placed horses, but I think you already mentioned there's quite a bit of pace I think in here, and I really do think it sets up for some off the pace types. I think Frosty O'Toole is probably um, the most just dead set, like not going to be on the pace whatsoever horse in this race. So I think this horse is not going to be part of the pace scenario. So I think Frosty O'Toole gets a good trip here, get some pace to close into. Like I said, of the speeds, I kind of liked randomized the best. Um, Pretty mischievous. I have a question mark here, but I mean, I really like her in this spot. I just don't know what kind of price you're gonna get. So this is it's just gonna be a question what I'm gonna do with her, and what we kind of see if we get any kind of scratches or what happens there. But it's definitely one I'll use. Um, but the other horse that I was pretty interested in was this eight a seed on the stretch out. Ran in that eight bells, and it was a pretty soft pace for 7 furlongs at Churchill there. They went 22 and 3, 45, and this horse was able to kind of clunk up and get third, but you know I don't know. I just think that this is another off the pace horse that kind of got a similar trip to that is going to get a similar trip, I think, to a horse like Pretty Mischievous. But kind of how you pointed out, Caleb, I just think the price is going to be much bigger. Once again, a horse that needs to get improvement, but I think run style wise, I think a seed fits here. I think if I were just to kind of structure something here, um, I don't know. I would probably lean on those three horses the most. I know I have other notes written down, but I'd probably lean on like Frosty O'Toole and a seed as kind of B types. Maybe move one of them up to an A, and then use Pretty Mischievous and kind of stick with that because I'm already using a short price in this spot. But I don't know, Mark.
Yeah,
Where did you
because
kind of see it?
I don't want to drag on for too long. I very much agree with what both of you said. I don't see Frosty O'Toole. I think if I want a closer, I want to go to somebody like a seed who Josh had already mentioned, or a horse. I shouldn't say closer. Horse that's going to be coming from more off the pace if they go a little suicidal and it does come apart. I think she's a horse that sits a little bit more off from it and can close into that faster pace. Pretty mischievous. Obviously, if it comes apart, it's going to really set up for her, and she's a hard horse to hate. And I think randomized is really interesting. If the pace holds together, it wouldn't be a shock if Chad wins this one with one of his in his in his backyard. I thought those were the three really interesting horses. I know none of us talked about Money's Gold, and not that I want to really harp on this race for too long, but I mean I was shocked that Aragona made her 9-5 on the morning line. I realize she's 3 of 4 and only missed by a head, but isn't she a horse that you kind of want a little bit shorter? At least that's how I kind of looked at it, being a Munnings. I just assumed that this is just too far for her.
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised with the line. I think this horse will attract support for sure. I kind of think maybe Pretty Mischievous will be a little bit shorter, maybe swap her with Money's Gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a horse that it's hard for me to evaluate her because I mentioned this horse was campaigned very strangely on a previous stream. The Monmouth
Mhm.
debut, 2 Florida bred races where she just runs out of her skin. And then she finally goes against Real Company and gets beat ahead. It isn't like she ran terribly, but 2-5 as lone speed, you're kind of supposed to win that race. And I think you can put a lot of the blame on Irad Ortiz. I thought that was a terrible ride. Very overconfident. He almost went too slow up front and invited the rest of the field into the race when he could have easily just drawn off against that field. And Red Carpet Ready was able to run her down, even though she was kind of fighting back there late. So there was a lot. I had a lot of issues with the ride there. So maybe with a better ride, she gets a better result. But after that effort, stretching out here with other speed in the race, she's not for me. At whether it's first or second choice, I mean, she won't be for me either way.
Question: I just because I have a real bad memory. Where did Red Carpet Ready come from in that race? How far off was she?
Not far. I think she was third.
Third.
Yeah,
Fourth.
yeah.
Okay.
She wasn't that far off.
So that race basically held together then up front.
It did, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the seed made a nice move before flattening out in that race, and just to kind of support both of y'all's points. I mean, that's probably the Chad Brown horse I like the best in here, and probably would be my one of the Bs I would use in this race. I think that she wasn't the best in that race, but I think she has upside and could improve.
Yeah, because I was trying to remember back to the race, and I thought a seed was basically the only horse that kind of passed a number of horses. And I know only clunked up for third, but it was a pretty slow pace up front. So I think if she gets a little bit more pace, and I mean, for all we've said about Into Mischief, right? Into Mischief getting the mile and 16th is much more plausible now after as opposed to maybe Munning's horse, getting the mile and 16th. Not that we haven't seen Munning's horses win route races, but it's I think the stretch out helps a seed a little bit, and it is a huge question mark for Money's Gold. And when you have such a difference in prices, I think you kind of like that you can't take a set that short of a price on a horse stretching out that might not just get the distance. So congratulations to Money's Gold for winning the Acorn here, getting her grade 1. But Charles mentioning that he thinks that. Oh, there we go. He's Brown Pratt might clunk up for the win, and then Road Warrior likes the 8 as well. Yeah, I think a lot of us kind of see it the same way. Like I said, pretty mischievous wins. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. Obviously, I'm always looking for a little bit better of a price, but so Caleb, I know you've kind of got this reputation for being a turf marathon savant, and usually we're talking about like a mile and 3/8, a mile and a half, the normal distances. But what happens when you start going 2 miles, and your old friend Channel Maker shows up still? I mean,
Good old Channel Maker.
This is just like this is a real strong Euro, and then just a bunch of has-beens, isn't it? Like, I don't know. You were gonna say something, Caleb?
I agree with the second half of your statement. I definitely think the American contingent in here is pretty terrible. I think Siskiny is probably he's not great. He's like Charlie Appleby's Rock Emperor to Chad Brown. Like he's just kind of he shows up every once in a while. He wins a couple of races, but he's not great. And I think it's more just a testament to the fact that this field is more not great than anything else. Which is the reason Siskiny is 8-5, but he's a deserving favorite in here for sure. I mean, he tends to run better over firmer ground. He ran a good second 2 back. He handles this distance. I mean, he should stay all day. I'm not too worried about that. So he's a deserving favorite. These longer turf marathons are actually easier for me because I can generally throw out all the American horses and just take the Europeans. It's a little bit tougher this year because the Europeans really aren't that great in this field. I actually slightly prefer the number 11 to the number 2. That is High Definition. And if you show that on Briz, I would say that at least my form is not correct. I'm not sure if maybe I pulled it too early, Josh, but I'm going to see what yours shows here in a second for High Definition. Yeah, yours is the same. It shows his last race as October 1 of 2022. He's actually had about 4 or 5 jumps races since then that for some reason aren't showing up on Brisnet.
I can show him if you want me to, Josh. I have him up. DRF shows him.
Yeah, Timeform and DRF both show it. His most recent race was April 28th, so I was kind of trying to cross-examine this, and I'm like, what am I missing here? I was losing my mind until I figured out what was going on. But yeah, I think he's got a little more back class than a horse like Siskiny. I know that's kind of maybe a tough argument to make when you compare the earnings, and High Definition perhaps hasn't been ultra competitive in some of those races. But if you look back to where he was running over the summer last year, he was pretty much running exclusively in Group One company against some really good Group One horses. I mean, Alpinista, Baid, I mean, Alenker, a lot of really good uh, European turf horses, Pile Driver, Hurricane Lane. So I tend to think that the company he's been keeping is just a lot better, and this is just monumental class relief for a horse like High Definition. I know that when he did drop in grade in his last couple, he still didn't get the job done. But I'm just kind of going out on a limb because I'm not totally sold on Siskiny. I don't like the Americans. And I'm kind of taking a shot with the other European in here, the Joseph O'Brien, who I think might be ready to run a decent race, which might be good enough just to beat this field anyway.
So Charles says take the jump horse. Doesn't have to jump in this race. Does that mean he likes
Which
cross border?
which
There's a
jump
handful
source?
of them, yeah.
Because there's a
Right.
bunch of jump sources in here.
Is cross border in this? Is this the race cross borders in? Or is
This
it
isn't the
other-
inner turf at Saratoga, though.
But Barbados is also a turf as a jump source. So
Limperador is in here too.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue
no,
High
cross
Definition
borders
is
in here. Oh no,
recently.
he is in here. There we go.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I looked at the 11 for quite a bit of time. I was a little now. I haven't looked at the jumps races obviously because I'm looking at the Brisnet form. So maybe it's maybe he does have. I mean, does he have any like 2 mile jumps races in them, or are they all?
well,
all
they're
shorter?
further than 2
They're
miles.
further? Okay.
Yeah,
Because
he
like my
ran
concern with
he ran a 2 3/8 last out.
yeah, my
Yeah.
concern with high definition was just that, he hadn't gone longer than I think, he went that mile and 13/16, but for the most part, he hadn't been going longer than a mile and a half,
Right.
whereas a horse like, was it the 2 horse, Siskiny has got at least a pretty decent 2 mile race there where he finished second to Broome, or the ghost of Broome probably at this point. So that's kind of why I leaned a little bit more on the 2. Um, Not to say that maybe 11 doesn't make my tickets with that added info. I did look a little bit at the 7 for Christophe Clement. This is another horse that came in here to Gulfstream first off the shipping in, won a nice race. They added some distance, and he didn't seem to really run as good of a race. I don't remember if that's if Rosario got caught inside or not in that race, because that's like been his move lately, is save all the ground and then just never find any room. I don't know what's happened to him.
What
but-
race are you talking about? The Sheepshead Bay?
Yeah.
You mean the race where Kendrick was on him?
Oh, Kendrick was on him. Sorry. No, never mind. So I don't know. Maybe with some improvement in the 7, I don't know. I had a question mark next to him. Actually, the American horse I like the most was drawn all the way to the outside, which is the 13, the Gray Wizard, for Graham Motion and John Velasquez. And this was just kind of this seemed like a horse, in his 4-year-old season now, seems to have gotten pretty good. Won that nice allowance race going a mile and a half, and kind of looking at the breeding, this is definitely a horse that just wants to run all day. So I'm interested to see what a little bit extra added ground to this horse does. Johnny V stays up, and he's won 2 out of the 4 times he's ridden this horse. So this was kind of the American horse that I was kind of leaning on, just coming in with that off that nice win, and just a horse I thought that with some added distance, I think might turn into a really, really nice horse. So I'm going to be 2 and 13 in this race. I might use a little bit of the 11, and maybe a little bit of the 7 as well. I see Kevin Slattery. He likes the 7 in this spot as well. Mark, where did you kind of land?
I'll be pretty much lone A-ing Siskiny. I think that 2-back effort where he lost to Broome by a neck. I think that basically screams to the kind of class level that he's at. I mean, I think he just absolutely towers over this field. Now he does need to get a trip, but I think Charlie Appleby sends him over. Obviously, Charlie Appleby wins like 50% of the time he sends a horse over. So I think he's really, really live here. Amazing Grace, who Josh had already mentioned, is another horse that I do like a little bit, but I think 90 or 95% of my money would be going through somebody like Siskiny. I think he just absolutely much better than this crop. I know Caleb doesn't really love him, and I get it that he's only 7 for 18 lifetime, and I guess he could win more often, but it does seem like he's not a horse that wins every time out. He doesn't string them together, but he does seem to, this is just massive class really for him. This is just a lot softer company than what he was facing in Dubai.
Anything else on this race?
More of a general comment, and we can maybe talk about it more on the Manhattan if we get to tomorrow. But what's y'all's general vibe on the Charlie Appleby runners lately? Because it feels like last year everything he sent out was winning. It doesn't matter how it looked, if you heard of the tracks it was running at, Godolphin or not. I mean, just everything he was sending out was just running out of its skin. And he's had a winner or two, I think, so far this year, but he's also had some pretty big disappointments as well. We saw Modern Games get pretty soundly beaten at Keeneland earlier this year as a very heavy favorite. We saw, With the Moonlight, Walk the Moonlight, I always forget, that horse get beat last time. We just saw Silver Knot get beat, I think 2 weeks ago or last week, whenever that was. So it seems like, he's still winning at a fair share, don't get me wrong, but just that dominance he displayed last year, do you think he just doesn't have the same caliber of horses this year? I mean, how are you guys approaching this? I mean, is he still in must-use territory just because he's Charlie Appleby, or are you willing to kind of let him beat you in some of these spots?
I think for me, he's must use. My take on him is that he doesn't have a huge number of North American starters. So the fact that whatever, he's still averaging like a 50% win rate or something over the last 3 years. I mean, it's still absurd. Basically, everything he ships over is live. I would agree. So far this year, he has not been as live as he historically is. But I just think he's just getting the best of the best stock wise, and I would wait a few more starts before I start making a decision that, okay, he's not as live as he was. I think the sample size is just too small to really be making a decision like that at this point.
Okay, I think that's fair.
All right, so Mark, you said you wanted to look at this Intercontinental a little
I
bit
think
here.
I think it's a good race, but you don't have to, Josh.
What did you like in this race here?
I thought there were some interesting horses, and I think one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk about this race is the 3-horse Clothario. I don't know how we want to pronounce that name. David Aragona made this horse 15-1 on the morning line. Horse 1 going this trip last out at Belmont, or I guess technically longer than this Mont. And Graham Motion sends Fergal Lynch up for the one start, I think, on the weekend. I thought this horse was extremely interesting. Time Form thought very highly of that last out start. And if you get anywhere near that sort of a morning line for a horse that has done absolutely nothing wrong since being shipped to the States, I'm extremely, extremely interested, in Clothario, or however we're trying to decide to pronounce that name. I thought there's some other interesting.
Hero.
How is it? Clit Hero? We're going Clit Hero? Clit Hero? Okay.
I have no idea. I'm just kidding.
Is that your nickname, Caleb? Is that what you're going for?
No, that's a gift. Go on.
I also thought there's some other interesting players. I thought Baystorm in here for Jonathan Thomas made a lot of sense, and also Bubble Rock, who really likes this Belmont course. For Brad Cox was also another really interesting horse, but I thought the 3 was a really interesting player. I think that's just a terrible morning line, and you get maybe half that if you're lucky, but. Yeah, I thought it was a fun little race, and these turf sprints are always a cool affair. Even if so far this meet speed has been very good on them from what I've seen, so I don't know if I want a horse as far off as the 3 will be. But
so that was my challenge with this race, and this is one I handicapped a little bit quicker since it wasn't one of the ones we initially talked about. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who gets the lead in this race. Because, even optics and I even looked at Brisnet Pace Figs trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I have no idea who goes to the front in this spot. Who do you put on the lead in here?
I think it's probably Bubble Rock. I think he probably makes the
Even
lead
with
because
Rosario, you think?
I thought it was Baystorm.
I mean, Rosario's gone to the lead on him. That Miss Revere, he did. I
At
mean,
a
honestly, that
mile of
allowance,
16. That's a lot different than six. So
yeah.
we came from
Okay,
third from
okay, okay,
last.
okay.
But
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
mean,
I mean, I don't. I mean, I looked at Baystorm. I looked at Bubble Rock. I mean, I looked at a horse like Amy C, who is probably getting
Going's
flattered by
good,
those.
maybe the 8.
Yeah, I
I
mean, it's a tough race from a
yeah.
pace complexion. I think it's a very difficult race to figure out who's going to go.
Yeah. No,
And I think
yeah, I do agree with you. I think from a pace complexion, it is a little bit of a murky race, and I always find that there's definitely times where you're like, oh, lone speed, okay, that's something you always play. When I look at the pace complexion, I'm like, I have no idea. Then I just kind of go back to my bread and butter, which is looking at speed figures and trying to understand who I think the major players are.
yeah.
So, yeah,
No, and I get that, and I think that's kind of like maybe a somewhat similar angle I took in this race, where I sort of looked at if I don't know where the pace is going to really come from, I had a hard time visualizing this race. I'm not going to be incredibly involved in this race from anything besides maybe a pick five that probably ends here. But I agree with you on Clitheroe. I think that at that price, that horse makes a lot of sense. I don't know that you get that price. Regardless, my opinion here is I don't want a short price, and I don't want a horse that's a confirmed deep closer. And I'm not saying Clitheroe is a confirmed deep closer after one U.S. start. More or less going against a horse like Poppy Flower, for example, who I think has just kind of had enough chances for me. Messidor just too slow. Those are the kind of horses I'm throwing out. So the other horse I ended up on in here, in addition to the number 3 you mentioned, Mark, was the number 6, Amy C. This is a horse that maybe was just a sprinter all along. If you throw out the 2 mile races that she had at Santa Anita and Del Mar, she'd be 3 for 3 in the sprints. Now those are all going down the hill at Santa Anita, which tends to play slightly longer than 6.5. But nevertheless, I think that Phil D'Amato is one of probably the premier turf trainer out west. Everything he sent to Keeneland and Churchill was extremely live, whether it won or not, very live. He goes to Flavian Pratt for the mountain here, going some old school California connections. And I'm not sure that she's quite good enough, but I think she'll be forwardly placed. I think that she's going to get a little bit overlooked, perhaps. And in a race where I just had a hard time figuring out who else I liked, this is the horse that at least I think should be somewhat forward, likes to be sprinting on the turf around one turn. Uh, and I'm going to have her on a ticket with Clitheroe somehow.
yeah, I didn't know what to do with Amy C because I know again I'm not a Santa Anita expert, but my thought was always that she's 3 for 3 going on the 6.5 down the hill, and my thought was always that horses that did well there tend to be more milers, that they tend to be the horses that get a mile, but then she hasn't really done well at a mile. So I just kind of went with, is she just a down the hill turf specialist, which those definitely do exist. There's a number of horses that's their thing. I do agree with you. She might very well may get lost on the board. I wish somebody else other than Pratt was up on her because I think Pratt will attract money, especially being on turf. But I didn't quite know what to make of her. I have her marked down. She's a B on my sheet at the moment. But she was just a hard one for me. I didn't quite know what to do with her. I mean, if you think she's a down the hill specialist, you toss her. And if you think she's a horse, again, the argument you made, she's a must use. So she's a hard one.
Do you look at anything here, Josh?
I like the 5 and the 6 in the spot.
Okay.
I think there's a chance that the 5 Baystorm might end up. Ooh, that was a nice pop.
That was a really good one.
I think the 5 Baystorm might be. There's a shot that this horse is the horse ends up on the lead. If you kind of go back to July of last year, 6 furlongs here on the turf, went wire to wire with Louis Sai as a board. And then Jonathan Thompson has kind of been, I don't know, playing around with the distances on this horse, going 5.5, 6.5, a mile, then coming back 6.5, 5.5. So, yeah, I don't know. Finished second to Caravel last time out. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Baystorm is in here with a pretty big shot. And yeah, I kind of shared your sentiment, Caleb, here on Amy C. She started going 6.5 down the hill, and all of a sudden, she kind of turned into a different horse. And to Mark's point, hey, maybe this is a down the hill specialist, but I think I'll take a shot at 5-1 on this horse. The horse seems to fit. The horse is coming in really good form. You get Pratt instead of Rispoli, which depending on who you talk to may or may not be an upgrade. But yeah, I thought the 5 and the 6 were both really good. I've seen a lot of talk on this 3 on Twitter, but I don't know if it's just because of the name. Because there were many horny jokes made about the 3, but a horse that came fresh off one at 7 furlongs here at Belmont is getting the cut back. I mean, makes a bit of sense in this spot. So maybe this is a B type, maybe an A type. I did see Kevin mention this too, Sarah Harper. He said that the last race was pretty impressive visually. That unbridled. I don't remember, it was an unbridled song or something. Stakes, whatever that.
Yeah.
Unbridled Sunday, I think. Um, any interest here in this too?
Nope.
I actually had Sarah Harper in that race at 38 to 1. Um, and I don't really like her in here. And maybe that, I don't know what that says about me or about her or about just life in general.
Hmm.
But, yeah, I liked her. I think I was kind of just, liking her because I didn't like anybody else in that race with Caravel. But yeah, it depends what kind of ride she gets. I mean, in the event nobody goes, I mean, she does have speed from some of her previous races, but she's clearly not a need to lead type. So, I mean, the ride here will be critical for her. Yeah, I think she makes sense. I mean, she's not like my top pick or top 2 or 3, but in a race where I really don't have much of an opinion, like I could see using her. Yeah.
Yeah, my issue with her is she hasn't won since in a year and a half, and that was over good dirt at Oaklawn. She's just too slow on figures. It seems like they've been trying to get her 5.5 on the turf. They ran her at both Saratoga and Churchill. Um, I don't know why this is supposed to be something different. I mean, you would think they would have gotten her this trip on turf earlier. I don't know. It seems like they're fishing and trying to find something she likes to do. She's 3 for 13 lifetime. I mean, she's obviously worth a ton as a broodmare, and she's an interesting. I don't know. I mean, if you want to fill out a trifecta, yeah, she seems to like to hit the board and fill out trifectas. But I have a really hard time putting her on top at anything less than 3 times morning line, 2 times morning line. Let's say 2 times.
All right. Well, we got a lot of races to get to, so we will move on over to Saturday's card. I hope they run tomorrow.
It's a
Mostly
good
because I
card
did.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Agreed. Really good card.
I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest. It's purely selfish because I have a day off. So
Do you ever work? Like ever? Weren't you off today?
the month of May for me was just the weirdest work month I had because I had a conference. No, it started with Derby, right? So I had Thursday, Friday off for Derby. Then I had a work conference Monday through Wednesday. Then I worked Thursday, Friday. Then I worked Monday, Tuesday, and then I had another work conference thing like Wednesday through Friday. And then I think I worked one full week, and then I had the week of Memorial Day off. So, yeah, it's nuts. I don't know. But hey, when you get 5 weeks vacation and you have work conferences, that's what happens.
By the way, up 2 races, Josh. Where's 5?
Sorry, I was just looking over at the
No
last
worries.
race.
No worries.
So the poker. So this is the start of Mark's Chalk Fest that he wanted to talk to. Shea Pierre coming in here at even money. So Mark is probably singled. I have a question mark because there are horses in here that I think have run just as fast as Shea Pierre, and you're getting a much better price. So while I think Shea Pierre is definitely in here with a really big shot to win, I think that there are other directions you can go from a price standpoint, from a game theory standpoint. Most notably, the 2, Emirati. This horse on time form looks humongous. And if you compared this horse's races to Shea Pierre, I mean, they're just as fast. And I think Shea Pierre, if I remember correctly off the time form, the last race was really fast, but is kind of an aberration, I think, on
Yep.
the rest of
You're
his
right.
races. whereas Emirati has run just as fast, but has done it multiple times. So I don't know. I think Emirati's in here with a really, really big shot. And at 6 times the price currently on the morning line, I don't know if you get that, right? Because it's Chad Brown, Jose Ortiz at Belmont. So maybe I'm just dreaming of tomorrow. I don't know. But I thought the 2 was in there. I mean, you could probably make a little bit of a case for Emmanuel, but I mean, Emmanuel's kind of just falling off form a little bit here. I thought last time was the time for Emmanuel, and it just didn't really work out. Maybe the horse just wants to go a mile, and the cutback's going to help, but I don't know. I landed on the 2 here, Emirati. I think this horse makes a ton of sense. That Berard Baruch is a humongous figure. Um, I guess you could use the 1 too, but I think the 2 is going to offer the most value in this race. What do you think, Caleb?
Yeah, so I think I kind of agree with your general assessment, Joss. I mean, Ches Pierre ran an enormous race at Keeneland. So maybe I don't completely agree that, like, oh yeah, I mean, there's others that have run just as fast. I mean, with the exception of maybe Emirati's last race, I don't think anybody's has a race that can stack up to what Ches Pierre did in the Maker's Mark Mile. With that being said, you're right in the sense that that was kind of a freak effort from this horse who's never run anything like that prior. This is a 5-year-old with 7 career starts and has never run more than 2 races in a calendar year. These unsound horses do tend to run huge figures and then sort of disappear for a while. So I'm extremely nervous about this horse coming back on, 2 months. But for a horse like this, 2 months is a quick turnaround. And I'm very nervous about Ches Pierre. This horse will get bet off the board. Deserves to be the favorite, but I agree with you. That I think that he could be vulnerable in here. I think Emirati is one contender that you can look to try to upset Ches Pierre. I think my problem with Emirati is similar to what I have with Ches Pierre in the sense that Bernard Baruch came back extremely fast, and on time form it came back extremely fast anyway. On Brisnet and on Thorograph it is a little bit slower, but this is an 8-year-old gelding that is coming off of pretty much a career top or near a career top that hasn't been out for 8 or 9 months. There's some questions there. I think if Logan Pratt gets off to ride Ches Pierre, which clearly makes sense. So I think Emirati is a contender to be sure, not probably my top pick in here. I'm actually going to go to Mr. Do the least with the most in this race.
Oh
Number
God, you're going to talk
7,
my horse, aren't you? Damn
brought
you!
to you by our Mr. Wildfire himself, Mark Cassie, King of the North. So yeah, this is a horse that again, unsound horse. This is a 7-year-old horse with 10 starts. Clearly had some issues because raced in 2019, came back in 2021 for 1 start, disappeared for another year, but last year finally got healthy and put together a really nice campaign. This horse clearly handles pretty much any distance from 6 furlongs all the way up to a mile. That last out was just the most obvious prep race I've ever seen, going 5.5 on the synthetic at Woodbine. Clearly not intended to win that race, so I don't care at all that he lost. That was a race that was won gate to wire with relatively moderate fractions by the pace setter. Doesn't bother me at all that Filo Di Ariana lost that race. I think he'll be sharper second time out here. And I really think that he's in with a huge shot. He has some figures that stack up very favorably. He's 2 for 2 at a mile in here. Just needs to kind of prove that he is the same horse that he showed glimpses of last year at Woodbine, and that he can take his game out of Woodbine. His 2 tries in the States at Belmont and Keeneland were extremely poor. Those were going much shorter than what he gets today. So I tend to think it's the distance that sort of did him in, rather than the fact that he just can't run outside of Woodbine. But that's a decision people are going to have to make on their own. I think this horse is in with a big shot and would be my top pick in here.
Yeah, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this race was I think there's a lot of cases against Chez Pierre, the 1. And my biggest one is that if you look at all of Chez Pierre's wins, those have all been 2-turn miles. And this is only a 1-turn mile at Belmont. So very different race complexion. And I landed the same spot Caleb did, which is Filo de Ariana. I think again that last out was the world's most obvious prep race. Tuned up for this. And when you talk about angles, Luis Saez lone speed on the turf is about the most deadly thing in horse racing. And that's what you should get here. This horse has all sorts of tactical early foot. Louis can kind of break, put everybody to sleep on the front end, and then just get the horse to finish. And he's honestly probably the best, one of the best in the world at playing that kind of game. So I think if you get anywhere near this 4-1 morning line, this is just a straight win bettable horse. And I think it's a horse that I would want to key around in with other wagers. I absolutely love Filo de Arena in this spot. And
I
again,
actually have to correct you real quick, Mark. You said that Luis Saez on the front end and the turf race is one of the deadliest things in horse racing. I think you have to put Churchill Downs dirt track a little bit higher than that.
Oh, too soon, too soon.
that
Boo! Hit
that
the
was
soundboard.
yeah. Boo yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to get that
I'm
one.
really thinking horse racing is
that
Rosario in
was
the lead.
terrible.
Did
Oh
all
my
your
God.
tickets.
Christ, Josh. That was terrible. Yeah, I absolutely, I really, really love the 7 here. I think it's a really, really interesting spot. And again, Caleb already talked all the reasons. And the thing is, this horse just likes to win. I mean, obviously, there's those long layoffs, obviously some issues, but if you cross those 2 long layoff races out, this form is absolutely phenomenal. The horse is just wins. So
I will say kudos to Churchill for making a change so quickly when although they kind of admit that they don't think there's an issue, the fact that they're just as puzzled and they decided to move racing, I think
you're going to give them kudos when they come out and say there's nothing wrong, but we're making a change anyways.
I mean, yeah, well, because obviously they have to do something, right? And maybe they
No. I
don't, maybe
mean,
they don't see there's a problem, but at least it gives them time to investigate to see if there is,
so I would
maybe
much rather
something
they
deeper
came out and
underneath.
said, "Hey, we don't think there's any problem, but the all in just taking the utmost levels of caution, we're going to move anyways." Instead of coming out and saying, "No, there's no problems, there's nothing whatsoever," but yeah, we're going to move. Like, I think that the optics of saying there's no problems, but we're going to move anyways. Obviously, respect for them for doing something that is kind of unprecedented. I mean, I respect that, but I wish they'd packaged it a little better.
Anything
But
else in this race?
No, I'm good.
no, I think it's. I don't think I'll say about this race. I think it's more wide open than the morning line implies it is.
I think you need to have an opinion on Shea Pierre in here.
Yeah.
For, against, regardless, this horse is going to get pounded off that last out,
Yep.
especially when Modern Games came back to win a Group 1. Up the Mark came back to just annihilate a field a couple weeks ago at Churchill. If this horse, if you think he runs back to that, I think you single and move on. If you have doubts, I think you have to play against at the price.
Yeah, I'm gonna toss him.
Using the horse with others, I think, is just kind of wasting money, though.
Yeah, it's suicidal. No, I think I'm gonna be a little bit more spread and use a couple others, but he'll be tossed. I'll have my nowhere.
Yeah, I mean,
if he beats me, he beats me. That's fine.
We're gonna skip over the Brooklyn because Mark hates.
Well, thank God. I looked at that and I'm like, I hope we don't have to cover this. Dirt marathons are worse than turf marathons.
Caleb, you're welcome.
Let's move on to the Ogden Phipps. Mark, where did you kind of land here?
Oh, thanks. Wait for him. Got a mouthful of bourbon to make an opinion. To call me out. Thanks, bud. No, I mean this is one of the shorter fields on Saturday, but it's also I think one of the most competitive races. This race is absolutely. There's no one that is running. Obviously Latruska is no longer running, so there's nobody here that you would want, or there's nobody running that's in training that isn't here. I had an absolutely, I don't even want to admit the amount of time that I stared at this race, this morning, and kept going back and trying to make an argument. And I mean, there's 6 horses here. I think 5 of them you can make a legitimate case can win. I think my top pick is I'm going to go back to the search results. I think search results, you can make an argument that her best race of her career was this race last year where she chased down Latruska early and then held on real game late. And she got caught, right? She didn't win the race, but she did all the dirty work early. And I think that to me, says a lot. She obviously gets across the surface really well. I think that last out, obviously Chads don't normally need a race, but he's much better second off than he is off the long layoff. So I would imagine that Latran was a bit of a tune-up. This is probably the target race, and I think she's extremely interesting in this race. But again, there's another whole stack of horses that you can make a case for. That's my top pick, and I'll throw it off to one of you guys to wax poetically about somebody else.
There's no way search results wins this race, right? Because I have a feeling Caleb's on search results as well.
I am not on search results now.
Oh,
excellent.
And like,
interesting.
I'm like the biggest search results stan. Like, I feel like on this stream, I feel like I've bet her in every race since the Oaks. But like, I think at this point, I just finally give up. Like, at some point, don't you just concede that she's not this good? I mean, pace advantages, it doesn't matter. I mean, she can, that race where she dueled with Latruska and put her away and then got run down late. I mean, it just seems like at some point, I think I have to accept that whether it's a distance issue, a training issue, or a class issue, she'll run a race for sure. But I feel like the number of times she's gone up against Clairiere and Secret Oath and company and just has come up short. Is she just not that good? Is it time to just accept that?
No.
I just I mean, I get it, but where okay, if you're not going search results, where are you going and make a case someplace else?
Well, Josh, why don't you make your case for search results first?
I just think that I think that there's two horses that are going to be forwardly placed in this race. I'm taking both of them. Search results is one of them, and I just think that of the quality speed races.
So you're taking past the
horses,
champagne then?
No,
I'm sure he's taking
five.
played hard.
The 5 played hard.
You don't think past the champagne goes?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't think she's as fast early. I mean, at least Optics doesn't think so.
Okay.
Optics thinks the 5 is much faster early, and the 2 as well.
Timeform would have a disagreement with you.
Yeah, well, Timeform sucks. If it was a turf race, maybe I would change my mind. But I don't know. I do feel you, Caleb, because I feel like I've bet this horse. I really like this horse. I think the La Troyenne, and I thought that was the time. And now I think I might be at the point where I'm just like afraid to not have her on the ticket, because I've bet her the last couple times. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, she does have a lot of quality. Has run against some really nice horses. Has raced all the races since she showed up for her 3-year-old campaign. So there's something to be said about that. That being said, just kind of looking at the pace scenario, I just don't think that there's that much pace in this race. There's really, I think, only two quality speed horses, and that's not going to melt it down. The other one being obviously the 5 played hard here for Phil Bauer, who did win that La Troyenne last time out, and is coming in also off another win at the Fall City. Now maybe this horse just likes Churchill, because 3 of the last 4 wins this horse has were at Churchill, but does have a humongous figure at Saratoga. I think this is the first try for this horse at Belmont. So I don't know. I think this horse is kind of sneaky good. Is 5, has, like I said, has won 3 of the last 4 graded stakes races that she's been in, and those have been on the lead. So I don't know. I think if Johnny V can get this horse out the gate good and get a really nice position either on the lead or just off of search results, I think this horse is going to be tough to beat. I think 6-1 is a humongous overlay in this spot, and I really like played hard in here. And this is I think Clairiere is obviously the class of I think the class of this division right now, but it seems to me like Clairiere does need a little bit of help, I think, up front. And I just don't know if she's going to get as much help as she needs in here. So I mean, if Clarier wins, like I'm not going to be shocked, but I'm going to kind of play against here, and I'm going to take the two forwardly placed horses here.
I gotta ask about your class of the division comment. I mean, she's been beat by others in here. I mean, Secret Oath has beaten her. I mean, obviously they've traded
Yeah, but Secret
wins.
Oath
The
sucks.
last
We
two.
all know that. That's fine.
I don't. I think that's.
I love
I don't.
Secret Oath.
I love Secret
I don't know.
Oath.
I don't think she
I
wins this race, but
no,
she's
I don't think
such
she
a
wins
fun
this race.
horse.
But she's a cool horse.
I'm just saying, if
How
those
can you
two
hate Secret Oath?
if those two are in the same race like all season, right? Like I see Secret Oath winning like one or two of those races and Clarier winning two or three. I'm not saying that like she towers over this field
That's
or
fair,
whatever,
probably.
but I think Clarier is the best horse in this field. Like she's not like a peak Malathat or like a peak Latruska, right? Where like
They
is a
were
huge overwhelming
phenomenal.
presence, but maybe she's more like
Or She Dares the Devil, or some of the other ones.
yeah,
That
more
were
like
real
a She
good.
Dares Devil, or who was the other horse that like it was a Brad Cox horse that was like really good, and I hated that horse. So
She Dares the
much.
Devil.
Oh, is that Shears Devil? Okay.
Yeah,
Who's the other
that'd be
horse
She
I was
Dares the
thinking
Devil.
of? Who's the other Daredevil horse? Wasn't there another one?
Yeah.
Um,
One
No,
of
I'm thinking
Preakness,
that's
right?
was
Skydiver.
Skydiver.
So Skydiver, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But,
But
I will say, I know Caleb hasn't talked yet, but if these five keep showing up in all these older Philly dirt routes all summer, it's going to be a really good summer. Like this is a fun little division.
yeah, I think you
Go
can
ahead.
argue that the older Philly and Mare Dirt division has
Just
been
fun.
more fun and more competitive than the males, or especially the turf. So yeah, I totally agree. With that being said, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing working against Clarier, I think, is the extra, 115 pounds of dead weight she has to carry. If you got, I mean, Mark's not here, so he can't defend Rosario, but I mean, he's been riding horrible at Belmont. I mean, just not even just Belmont, he's riding horrible for the better part of the year. I mean, he's 12% on the year, which puts him at, what is that, like, yeah, basically the same, half as good as Flavian Pratt, 2/3 as good as Fergal Lynch. I mean, Rosario has been so bad. And this is the kind of horse that he probably does fit, because these take back and make one run kind of horses are the ones he tends to screw up the least. But I can't bet him on the favorite pretty much in any race the way he's been riding. So I'm not going to use Clarier. I love Secret Oath, but the way she's campaigned oftentimes leaves her, I think, a little bit short of 100%. I think she probably needs 100% in this race. And after making her fourth start in 3 months, I wonder how much she has in the tank for this race. I'm actually kind of going with an outsider, which is going to probably surprise you guys quite a bit given where she's been campaigned. But I'm going with the number one, Pass the Champagne.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think mostly kind of playing a form cycle angle here. That in her last race, I mean, Brisnet, tends to flatter that race a bit more than either Time Form or Thoroughgraph, where that last race in the Ruffian had her pairing up her career top, which she ran 3 starts back in the grade 3 at Laurel. And I think she's just really sitting on a big move forward in here. I mean, she proved that she can handle like legitimate company outside of the Mid-Atlantic circuit, where she won a decent grade 2 at Belmont just a month ago. Idiomatic was second that race, a distant second by 5 lengths. She came back to comfortably win a grade 3 at Churchill in the Shawnee Stakes last weekend, I think it was. Gerrymander, a very highly regarded Chad Brown horse, is in that race. I mean, that was a decent grade 2. I mean, pretty salty, actually. And Pass the Champagne ran huge. And the more I looked at her, the more I realized that race didn't necessarily come out of nowhere. I mean, this is a horse that at one point of her career was beaten by Malathat by a head at Keeneland. And then kind of just, something went awry where she didn't do a whole lot of racing after that. But seems to be back on the right path in 2023, where she's now already had 4 races to her name this year. I think she's trending the right direction, and I think she's going to offer a lot of value in a race where Secret Oath and Clarier kind of figure to take a beating at the window. I think Pass the Champagne is sitting on a new top, and I don't think she's that far behind the big 2 or the big 3 in this race. So I'm going to go with actually Pass the Champagne, believe it or not.
I actually expected you to be on Played Hard, Caleb, of all the form cycle one that I was most interested in.
So I like Pass the Champagne. I'm sorry. I like Played Hard in here.
Okay.
Doesn't the line feels a little bit bad on that horse? horse, doesn't it? I mean, is she really going to be 6-1 after beating two horses that she faces?
If she's going to be
again?
6-1, dude, I'm going to Phil Hellmuth my bankroll in as quickly as possible. And
Yeah,
by the
I
way,
mean,
I
she
did
makes a
have
lot of sense, right? But at that price,
she's the
especially.
horse. She's the horse most informed in this field, arguably. I mean, I don't say arguably. I think it'd be hard to argue. I mean, she's just been winning lately, so she's been in really good form, and her figures fit. Yeah, and I think Claria needs some help, and I think with the Rosario factor and everything else. But I honestly don't know if she takes money. I think she's enough of an outsider that she might not, especially on a big day.
People love Secret Oath and Clariere.
Yeah, I mean, she'll be third pick, I think, for
horses.
sure. But will she be 6-1?
Will she be third pick? Are you sure?
I mean,
she'll
people
be no
love
better
search
than
results
third
too,
pick.
so
she'll be no better than third pick. Is more or less.
Okay,
yeah.
FYI, I don't know if you guys caught it, but I had to play the drink and champagne theme.
Oh, we caught it. We just ignored it.
Yeah, you guys just completely just talked over it. But I do have to comment on Road Warrior. Road Warrior is saying that Rosario sucked for years. The world is just seeing it now. I would say that Rosario is still the best jockey whose last name does not end in Z.
Ortiz, Velasquez,
Saez, Corrales.
That's an S.
Oh, it's an S. Damn it.
Yeah.
At first, I was going to argue, but I'm like, actually,
I have a hard time arguing that.
Bafleones.
I will say that he is definitely
Velasquez.
He definitely went through a bit of a slump. I mean, he's winning at 16% at Belmont at least, but yeah, it was unwatchable for.
It's still
is it still pretty bad?
I mean, it's still. The last 2 weeks in the more, most of the time. I mean, he has horses. He's Latrusca a number of rides, and I'm sure Josh remembers what I mean by that.
He's got one move, and he does that move every single race, and there's just he's just not seeing the ball well at all right now.
Is that his one move? No, you don't remember from Knocked Up?
I remember.
Where he's dancing. He's like, that's the only move. He's only got that dice roll move. That's all he's got. Race 8, the Woody Stevens here. Going 7 furlongs here for 3-year-olds. Grade 1. I mean, you might as well call this the Bob Baffert Stakes because I mean I think he's got a death grip on this race, but apparently I'm alone in that.
Yeah, you are.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think between Arabian Lion and Fort Bragg, I mean, I don't know. That's a pretty tough.
What?
That's a pretty tough thing, but I will say there is one outsider I really, really like in this race.
Probably the same outsider we all like, but why don't you go
13?
The 13. Yeah, who got the worst morning line of the entire day.
Yeah, this 13 obviously winning the Gold Fever last time out with Jose Gomez aboard for James Chapman.
The horse that's 4 for 4 lifetime, and the figs on that last out across the surface going this trip are just absolutely.
Yeah, improved in every start.
Every single start. And that last out figure runs back to that is top 2 or 3 in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I love everything about that. I love the fact that it's James Chapman. I love the fact that it's Jose Gomez. I love the 13 post. Like anything to get me 8-1 or 6-1 on this horse. I mean, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the stretch out's no concern whatsoever, especially given how that horse drew away last out. Like there's absolutely all systems go on that 13.
So with our record, when all 3 of us agree on the horse, I mean, this horse is going to be both he's going to be 3-1, and he's going to finish a tired.
And he'll run last.
Yeah.
Wait, but it works if we're in Indiana? Was it Indiana we were playing that one time?
Ohio
Derby for
Ohio.
sure.
It's Ohio Derby. Okay. Oh, works in Ohio. Okay.
Yeah. I will say I think in that Pat Day Mile, I know General Jim won that race, and I know everyone hates this saying. I think Fort Bragg ran the best race that day. In that, I agree. And so I'm really interested to see this horse coming back off that. I honestly thought Rosario's given this horse 2 really good rides in a row, which is I know just. Are you guys
just said a really silly thing.
It is really silly, but honestly, I mean. He gave that Florida Derby. I think that was the only chance that Fort Bragg had to win was to go there out on the lead. And he came back to the Pat Day Mile, and I thought he gave just an excellent ride. And he got beat by a neck there by General Jim. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to this Fort Bragwell, and I don't know, man. That last race by Arabian Lion, I know it was a restricted race at Pimlico, but that was pretty. It was a pretty impressive win. I will say that he had everything his own way, so he kind of paired his Lexington. Um, so I don't know if you necessarily see any kind of improvement, but I think if he can run that race a third time in a row, I think that race is good enough to win here. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on the cutback with this horse. I think the cutback helps Fort Bragg a little bit more than it helps Arabian Lion. But yeah, I'm on the two Baffords in this spot, and then I like the 13. Um, Mark, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, I understand where you're going with Arabian Lion. Like, does he look good on paper? Sure, but my main question with Arabian Lion is why in the hell is he here? Why are they running him as 7 furlongs? He's a horse that's always done okay going further. I realize he broke his maiden going 6, but that Sir Barton was at a mile and a 16th. Very, very different pace complexion going this shorter trip. And it just seems like a really odd spot to pick for this horse. And, I mean, obviously he's not just simply whatever, trailer fill or airplane fill or whatever, where they had an extra spot and they decided to bring him along for the ride. He's been a very touted and a very highly regarded horse for a long period of time, but it just feels like a really or a really weird spot for Bob to stick him. I think we already talked about Drew's Gold. I'll let Caleb can wax more about him if he wants to. I think we're all over that horse for a million obvious reasons. The other horse I'm really interested in here is General Jim. I thought that Pat Day Mile was a really impressive performance. Horses won 2 in a row now. This seems to be the trip he wants. He really does well in these 7 furlong, 1 mile type races. And time form absolutely love that last out performance. And I think General Jim with Louis up is a really, really interesting player in this race. Does need a little bit of pace help up front, more than likely, but I think he gets it here. So I think if you're to twist my arm, probably General Jim is my top selection, and Drew's Gold is my second choice here.
Yeah, so I think there's been a couple comments in the chat that I enjoyed. Yeah, Rosario's laziness will help him in this race. I enjoyed that one. I think it will, and that's kind of why I agree with Josh that of the Baffords, I want nothing to do with Arabian Lion. He can beat me, and he had everything his own way in each of his last 2 starts. I think he's probably better routing than sprinting. This feels a little bit suspect why he's here. Fort Bragg, though, I agree with Josh. I think he probably had the best race in the Pat Day Mile. He had a rough start, got banged around early, moved a little bit too early, I think, and just barely got run down by General Jim. I think Rosario's laziness kind of works out for this horse. I don't love the blinkers going back on. That's one of my biggest kind of concerns with him. That tends to suggest to me they want him more forwardly placed, and that's probably not where I think is the best place for him to be in this race. But I do still like the horse to some extent. Obviously, Drew's Gold makes all the sense in the world. Tough post, not the greatest jockey in this kind of a situation. Has been dealing with mostly smaller fields, so a lot of unknowns there. But yeah, the numbers, the figures, and the record all kind of speak for themselves. He's a horse that will be an A for me on all my tickets. And the other horse that I kind of wanted to touch on in here was actually the number 12, Gilmore. So I kind of view Gilmore in a similar way that I view General Jim, in the sense that I think they're somewhat similar horses, I think, and they got very different trips in the Pat Day Mile. Gilmore was breaking from the parking lot. He was extremely, extremely wide, kind of broke on top, got shuffled, back. I mean, 8th by 2, 8th by 6, lost 4 lengths of ground going into that second turn, and then re-rallied for a pretty good third, despite being way out in the middle of the track. Unfortunately, he is getting a wide post again here. So hopefully Irad can work out a slightly better trip and save a little bit more ground. But I think if you switch the posts and the trips of Gilmore and Fort Bragg, I think Gilmore wins that race. And again, I'm not talking about Fort Bragg, General Jim. But yeah, I think it's hard to say, switch two things and one horse wins, but uh, the fact that Irad gets on is going to suppress or depress the price on this horse a little bit. But I think Gilmore is sitting on a nice race. I'm not that worried about 7 furlongs at Belmont with him losing ground. So hopefully, yeah, I agree with Road Warrior. Losing ground in a fast-paced Woody Stevens, it might just come down to who is still running strong, running on late. And I'm not against General Jim by any stretch, but I do think that Gilmore is going to offer more value. So I think he's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the only other horse we haven't talked about that I was a little bit interested in here was the 7 Federal Judge. I don't know if the pace complexion necessarily sets up to give him a shot to be the winner here, but he's done nothing but win so far. The stretch out probably hits him right between the eyes. A horse that has a ton of early speed. And I don't know what Pratt decides to do, as he does have some speed drawn inside of him. I don't necessarily agree with the argument that this is a horse that can't pass other horses. He just hasn't really had to yet. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But I think at 8-1, he's a super interesting sort of fresh face and new outside sort of player. If he takes a ton of money, I'm not interested. But if he sits around that kind of line, and I think horses like Caleb's talked about that 12. I think somebody like that 12 may take some money just given the connections all around. There's a chance that Federal Judge drifts up, and then he's a much more interesting player. And I do like him here. I have him marked on as a B, and he's a horse that I wouldn't want to let beat me in something like a pick 5.
Yeah, I do like Federal Judge. It all comes down to the ride for him, so I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with him. There's so many options.
It all comes down to the ride, and it's Flavian Pratt aboard.
You can see Flavian Pratt. That's
so.
But I will say, I think you have to acknowledge that Flavian Pratt went through a massive slump over the winter. The past probably month and a half, he's been a very different jockey. I respect that transition. That was well done.
What race is that? It was race 8, right?
We're going to 9.
Right. Yeah, let's keep on going here. Race 9, the Jaipur, aka the disco partner. And yeah, we have a big old full field in this race.
This is a fun race.
This is a very fun race, and I had a really hard time getting around the favorites in the spot, the 11 and the 12. I think maybe Casa Creed, maybe there's a bigger soft fade here, maybe move down to a B or maybe as a toss, just coming back from Saudi Arabia, that bounce there. Caravel, I don't understand that last race, why Caravel ran in that race and then shows up in the Jaipur here. Like, I don't know, were they just like afraid to expend too much energy in a tougher race last time out? When
she was supposed to be going to Ascot.
She was supposed to be going to Ascot, and apparently plans changed.
Interesting.
So they wanted an easy prep pre-Ascot, and then for some reason decided not to go.
Yeah, they changed. They changed.
Just
absolutely annihilated. Yeah.
But I don't know. There's some other speed in this race that might challenge Caravel. I mean, you got the 9 Nothing Better in the spot, who I think has got a lot of early pace, and you got a horse like Air Force Red, who has got 1 mile speed. Maybe doesn't necessarily have 5.5 furlong speed, but I actually really like Air Force Red in this spot on the cutback. Going the 6 furlongs in this spot. You look on the PPs and the horse, looks like a kind of like a need to lead type for a bit. Has run 5 furlongs at Del Mar once. But I think if you kind of look at the pace figures on this horse, and the fact that this horse has been running a mile, I don't see any reason why this horse at 6 furlongs couldn't just sit maybe in that second or third kind of flight and maybe kick on kind of like a pressing type trip. You're getting 12-1 here. The horse has been working very, very well since that April start where she came second, or he came second, excuse me. But I don't know. I thought that Air Force Red is I thought was a little bit sneaky in this spot. And when you kind of look at the if I remember correctly from the optics plot, um, you know, I mean, it's a big old square here in the surface distance plot is also this Q3 square, which generally they only win when there's no Q1 squares. Now the five obviously is Dr. Zemf, who I don't really I don't really know what the heck that horse is,
Isn't
but
that because he historically does his best stuff in a mile, and this is a little bit shorter than that, and
yeah, but it goes
therefore
across. It highlights across. I think a little bit from distances, but I don't know. I on the optics plot alone, the three looks really really interesting. How much to trust it, I don't know. But the horse is also going to be all of 12 to 1, I think, in this spot. So I'm not gonna Caleb myself off of this horse, West Virginia style. And I don't know. I like the horse. I think Caravel obviously is looks really really good in this spot, especially the way that she won that last race. I mean, I think she's going to be really tough to beat in this spot, but I'm going to have some not arrest me red, uh, Air Force red a little bit as well. But Caleb, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, so I'm glad you pulled up the optics plot because I had the three nowhere on my tickets, and then I checked optics, and I'm like, is this right? Like, this horse is such a giant square in Q1 on optics, or Q1, Q3, depending on what plot you're looking at. That I don't know that I believe it, but at the price, the payoff is worth the risk. So I am going to have Air Force Red on a ticket. But my top two picks are two horses you've kind of already touched on, Josh. I like Nothing Better and Casa Creed. As is tradition, I will try to beat Caravel, and I will be upset when she beats me. But at this point, if I bet her and she didn't win, I do think I'd be more upset. So I'm going with Nothing Better and Casa Creed. Casa Creed, I think, looks to repeat off his win here last year. He doesn't get very many opportunities for this like sweeping turn, 6 furlong turf sprint, but when he does, he's very very good. I thought he ran an excellent race last time out in Saudi Arabia, and I'm not really worried about the Dubai bounce. I tend to think that angle is very overplayed, especially when you're looking at February versus June. Gun Knight came back to win, the last time we streamed off of last out Dubai race. I just think that I think it has some merit when you look at Derby horses coming from Dubai. I think it diminishes when you start getting into the 5-6 month layoff range. I think Costa Creed will be fine. I mean, he literally won this race off of a Dubai bounce, quote unquote, last year. So I'm not worried about Casa Creed whatsoever. And then Nothing Better is another horse who I think is just extremely sharp right now. A little bit worried about him going 6 relative to 5 or 5.5. But I think with the inside draw, I actually do think he's maybe a touch quicker than Caravel. I would love to see Manny Franco just give an extremely aggressive ride, get out there and wing it and say, come and get me. We'll see how that happens. But with that being said,
how drunk are you right now? I mean, come on
mean,
now, Caleb. Caleb, come on.
Manny does what he's supposed to. Manny's like a follow instructions jockey. If he's supposed to be on the lead, he will generally be on the lead. And if he's not, then he won't. He's not going to really improvise on the fly, I don't think. But I think that he takes orders well. I think that's why he gets a lot of Chad Brown mounts, actually, is that he can follow instruction. And I just think that Nothing Better probably has maybe a smidge more tactical speed than Caravel. And I just never thought Caravel was that good. If she happened to get this good as of November of last year, then I guess she'll beat me for the 4th time in a row or 5th time in a row, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, she looks strong in here, but I'm just going to go for Casa Creed and Nothing Better instead. And I did have 1 or 2 other prices, but I'll let Mark talk first.
Yeah, Nothing Better. It was a horse that I really liked. And I think Caleb talked that horse, and it made a lot of sense for that one horse. That this is probably the trip, and he's been okay at Belmont. So I thought Nothing Better was pretty interesting. But my top pick is actually one that no one has talked about, and that's the number 2 horse, Go Bears Go. This is a horse that I know Caleb and I were both high on for that last start. We both got burnt when the Josh Special wired the field on the world's most speed favoring turf surface ever. Um, I think the Belmont Six is a touch more fair. And I actually really, if you watch that last race, Go Bears Go was kind of rolling late, and I think this extra half of a furlong really kind of plays into his wheelhouse. And I know the time form fig came back very strong for that last race. They gave him a 116, I think he's really really interesting here. Now he's never been a win machine, but in Europe the 6 furlong trip was sort of his specialty. So I think Go Bears Go 12, at 12 to 1 in the morning line. You're getting Jose Ortiz, who I know a lot of people don't like him, but he's been riding very well now that he's back in New York, and I think he's an extremely interesting sort of horse that might get a little lost on the board for again the West Ward barn, who is notorious for winning turf sprints.
I feel like this is like a younger and like smaller version of Caleb chasing Channel Maker for like 3
You're
years,
probably not
where
wrong.
Mark is chasing Go Bears Go still from that juvenile turf sprint where
That
he had
is
him.
100% exactly what I'm doing. Eventually, he's going to win again, and I'm going to be right.
No, that's one of the prices in here that I thought looked interesting. Yeah, so I don't disagree with you there, Mark, but I do like the meme, so I'm going to go with Josh.
You're the worst.
I wish No Balls was in this race so I could bet him again.
Oh my god, that freaking horse! That horse will probably never have another start again. He's going to like disappear off the face of the planet after his one big win where he revellied a field.
Who's the other price you liked in here, Caleb?
Another price I liked was actually number 13, Front Run the Fed, who, if you throw out that Breeders' Cup Mile race, hasn't really run that poorly. Beat a pretty decent field at Keeneland last out, going 5.5. That was a race that where the front end pretty much held together as far as the pace goes. And Front Run the Fed was, it's like you had a steering wheel out there. Dicing in and out of horses, knifing inside, jumping outside. A really cool race for sure. So I think he has always been a horse that kind of falls in between a turf sprinter and a turf router, excuse me. So I think that I think he fits in here. If he can back up that last big race, we'll kind of see. But he does have some races that would put him in the conversation, and I think he's going to get completely ignored on the board. Yeah, John Massey brings up the Lasix point. I think that's super fair. His last 2 wins have come on Lasix, and he has to run without it today. So I think that's fair, but I also think this horse goes off in the ballpark of 30 to 1. So he'll probably make my ticket as like a C simply for the value that I think he offers.
I would never talk anybody off of 30 to 1. You do you. But
Who would?
yeah, who would? But isn't he really a 5.5 furlong specialist? His last 2 wins have come at 5.5.
I don't agree with that at all, though. I think he's sort of one of those tweener horses that just happen to get good enough or find the right fields or trip out at 5.5. But I actually think he's probably better at, closer to 6.
Okay. No, I respect that. The other 2 horses I thought that were interesting at prices, and hopefully you weren't trying to get anything in there, Josh, were the 2 also eligibles. If either one of those horses draws in, I'm super sort of interested in both Coppola and R Shot. Both are horses that have had are kind of just, I thought, interesting players. I thought both had races. That 2 back from Coppola, that optional 80 was a really good race. And you could argue that he had some issues in that Pimlico start where I think he got sent off the morning line favorite. And then our shot, who's on 2 in a row or 2 in a row win streak, seems to be a horse that's kind of putting things together. And now that they've figured out that they actually have a turf horse on their hands, seems to be, riding really well. And you're getting arguably, one of the best turf sprint jockeys in the world riding him. So I thought both of those, I realized that they're drawn out in the absolute parking lot, but I thought both the 15 and the 16 were both very interesting players at prices if they do draw into the field.
Dude, I see a lot of big invasion talk in here, and I thought we were done with this horse.
I'm done with this horse.
Are we done with this horse? Man.
Wait, big invasions even in this field?
Yeah, he's a 10. See big invasion.
I'm just done. I'm just done with him. I don't get it.
Man, this is gonna be like the best ride Rosario gives all day. I already know.
Watch, he'll go to the lead or something crazy.
He's gonna just it's just gonna be like a master class of turf sprint riding.
He's just one of those horses that hasn't run a race that makes him a player in his last 3 or 4 starts. I don't know if the wheels came off. I mean, I don't know. 3 to 4 is normally an improvement angle. His last couple of efforts have just. I mean, I realize he won the Silks Run, but the winning effort in the Silks Run is just nowhere near fast enough to be players in this field, and he probably takes money on the connections. So I don't want to call him a takeout reducer, but I guess I'm gonna call him a takeout reducer.
Interestingly, this is going to be the longest price Big Invasion's been his entire career.
Probably true.
That appears to be true. Yeah.
So if there's any time for Rosario to boom you,
you're right.
It's not a big enough price for him to boom you, though.
Anything else in this race?
Not for me.
No. But I will say, if you're a vertical type player, that's such a fun race. I mean, I could see the try or the super pang just absolute. Massive in that race where one of the, again, Caleb and I both were giving out 15 to 30 to 1 type horses. A couple of those hit the board, and all of a sudden these things pay massive. So it's a fun little race.
Yeah, I mean the Woody Stevens into the Jaipur is such a good open to that sequence. Yeah,
agreed.
So now that we're out of those 2 races, I mean, do you guys think out of the 3 of us, I'm the villain of this group?
Usually it's Mark, but lately it's been you.
Yeah, it's been me. Okay.
How have I ever been the villain? When?
Because I am on probably the 2 most hated horses in this entire field in this race.
Oh my God, you can't.
Oh God, are you really?
You're on Repo Rocks. And
I am on Repo Rocks, the 7, and I'm also on the 9, White Abario. Cody's wish is not going to be fulfilled in this race. Yep, there we go. Betting Repo Rocks, rooting he loses to Cody. So Road Warrior is going to put his money one place, but he's going to root the other way, which is I don't think something that we're not
So you're hoping to. So you're hoping that Dickie Dutro beats down the kid with ALS. Awesome, dude. That's a great look.
Look, I'm just saying, if you were a figs person whatsoever, like, don't you have to like the 7 Repo Rocks in the spot? I mean, I don't know where those figs came from, but
I know exactly where they came
Oats
from.
And hay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's clearly the oats and hay.
But he just fired a 47 and 2 bullet going 4 furlongs. I think he's coming in
cranked?
The
cranked would be the word.
Yeah, cranked. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I have a really I think if there's any horse in this race that's going to beat Cody's wish, I think it's a 7. Ryan saying Brisnett's Peach Figs are bad. If I remember correctly, they look just as good on time form and on Bayer. Am I wrong, Mark?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I on the Time Form US podcast, I remember Craig being like, "The figures are right, and I still don't believe them."
Yeah, that's exactly what he did say.
He said something along those lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I think Repo Rocks. I mean, shout out to Discord mod Champao. This is one of his favorite horses. I do not know why.
How can this be one of your favorite horses? That's like
he
rooting
loves
for
this horse.
like Cobra Kai on the Karate Kid.
Yeah, and he's the only Q1 square in this entire race. It's nuts. But if you look a little bit behind him, you see a little square there just behind him, and that's a 9 White Abario.
I can't see the square.
It's a little tiny square. But I don't know. I think White Barrio was really building up steam earlier this year. You know, ran his probably his best race in the optional claimer. I know it was at Gulfstream and it was an optional claimer, but you know, I think he was really prepping up to run a really big race, and obviously with with some of the stuff at his previous trainer and so Safi Joseph and everything going on at Churchill, he got basically, you know, he had to wait. He's showing up here in the Met Mile, and I don't know. I think he fits in pretty well. He's never run this horse at Belmont. I know his previous trainer Safi not exactly have the best record in New York, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that this horse was prepped to run a pretty big race. Obviously, he got pushed back 6 weeks, but I don't know. I have him as a B type in here. I think you're getting a nice price at 10 to 1 for a horse that I think has got a shot to win this race. I think Repo Rocks is probably your most likely winner in this spot, which makes me feel really gross. But yeah, I'm going to take the 7 and a 9 in this spot, and I'll boo myself. Just because I feel like
As you should.
I need
You
to
should.
boo myself
You should.
taking these two horses in the spot. But Caleb, where did you kind of land here?
You take Repo Rocks, you take the Safi horse, you take the Bafferts, and you take the Bafferts again later. I mean,
Yeah.
yuck.
There's got to be
I'm
one
simple
every
here.
stream. Every
Yeah,
stream's got its heel, and it's clearly Josh.
I mean, we probably get like taken offline for this. It's so dirty. But yeah, I think Cody Wish wins this race easily. I thought his last race was phenomenal. The pace of that race was actually on the moderate side. He came from dead last and just blew the doors off that field. I think he's way better than this group. I think a 1 turn mile hits him right between the eyes, and I don't really need to talk about it a whole lot more. I do think Repo Rocks fits on numbers. I will say that the Jamie Ness barn has been a little bit cold lately in the past month or so. So I'm probably downgrading him a little bit. And I don't really see anybody else in here that I think can compete with Cody's Wish. So I'm going with number 1, and I'm not going to overthink it.
I am doing the exact same thing Caleb is by using Cody's Wish. He'll be a lone A. The only other horse in here that I really want any little bit of action through
Don't
is
you do
Charge It.
Oh
Charge
my
It.
God.
I went there. Yeah, I went there. No, I mean, I don't know if this is the trip that Charge It necessarily wants, but he's been pretty damn good at a mile. I realize he's been off form his last couple of races. I'm thinking that him getting back up north may sort some of that out. And he's never missed the exact at the distance. So I do, and obviously I'm a total Charge It simp. So I've no regrets, but at least I'm not picking freaking a Jamie Ness horse. Christ.
Man, Mark's simping for Charge It and still makes Josh look like a bad guy.
It's like I don't know. Well, anything else on this race before I dig myself into a bigger hole?
Nope.
Just
Nope.
John Massey mentioned, and Cody's Wishes Unreal Works, which were I think
that Oklahoma track plays so slow. Those
so
are
slow and
crazy
those were
works. He's right.
freaky fast, absolutely scary.
What was he? He
fast
was working on
works.
a Remy.
Soundboard.
Yeah, boo yourself again.
I've seen a lot of Twitter conversation about slow down Andy. I don't see it, but did you guys? Is he going to make any tickets?
I was
No,
going
I
to
mean-
slap Mark if he picked Slow Down Andy.
No,
when
God,
he said,
no. Christ.
I forgot Charge It was in this race, and for a second I thought he was going to pick Slow Down Andy, and I was literally going to slap him.
I don't see it at all, but I've seen a lot of people that like that horse.
Doug O'Neill has some absolutely abysmal stat from shipping older horses to New York. It's like 0 for 40 or something. It's a terrible stat. I think Aragona posted it earlier. I no, just absolutely no.
John Massey's saying, telling me I should use him underneath apparently my trifecta, just to round it out.
I mean, that is the perfect.
I mean, he fits.
That's perfect. Everything wrong with horse racing rolled right up into a trifecta. That's great, Josh.
Well, if we're going to talk about drug overages, I should probably use the Pletcher horse too, right?
I mean, you have a valid point there.
Race 11, the Manhattan. Um, yeah, this was kind of a tough race for me. I'm very interested to see where you guys landed because this kind of looked chalky to me. I kind of landed on the two short prices in here, but I did have interest in a couple of long shots in here, just kind of based off of pace. But I don't know, Mark, where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say anything different than you probably were, Josh. I think the race really goes through, both Ottoman Fleet and Up to the Mark. Argued to be rated right now that Up to the Mark is the best American turf horse in training. And I mean, Ottoman Fleet is probably not, Charlie Appleby's A tier, but he doesn't need to ship his A tier over here. It's probably a B tier type, and I think that Fort Marcy was a really really good, really professional race. Interesting to see William Buick over instead of Mullen, but I think both of those two are the race goes through one of those two. If you're picking beyond those, I think there are some interesting players, and I'll bring some up. But I was kind of interested if Caleb has some sort of opinion, one of them over the other.
No, I don't really have an opinion here beyond the fact that I'm not crazy about either Appleby runner. Ottoman Fleet's probably a little bit better, I think. His last race was pretty good, but to be fair, I think Warren Point was facing a much better field than Ottoman Fleet was, and didn't run poorly. I mean, got beaten less than 2 lengths, but William Buick picks Ottoman Fleet. I do think that is probably the more well-meant Appleby horse in this field. But I'm still not sure just how much I really think of either of them. So yeah, I'm going with the Great American Hope, Up to the Mark. I thought he was outstanding last time out at Churchill Downs. This is a horse that's 3 for 4 across the turf. I mean, he was just beaten a neck by Modern Games 2 back in that kind of freaky Ches Pierre race that was kind of dominated up front. So I'm not going to really overthink this one either. I think that Up to the Mark is probably your most likely winner. I think the Appleby horses, especially Ottoman Fleet, is going to take more money than I think would represent their chances to win. So I'm likely to fade them a little bit. And I'll probably try to work Red Knight in the ticket somewhere because I have a soft spot for that horse. And he's been really good ever since going to Mike Maker. I mean, he's always been good, but especially this last year or so as a 9-year-old, he's been phenomenal. And you'll get a decent price. You tend to always get a decent price on Red Knight. He never tends to get bet despite his record. So he is another one that I'll probably use more of like a B type. But yeah, I'm going Team USA in this race.
So, any thought, Caleb, on the Warren Points last race and the fact that Frankie Dettori apparently forgot how to ride a horse in the last furlong? That maybe he's actually a little better than that race implied.
So I didn't watch the replay of that race. So if
You
you saw
should.
something that
Oh,
was
you should.
interesting, I would like to hear it because it bothers me that Charlie Appleby horse that's sitting next to last strikes the front in the stretch and then gets passed by 4 of the 5 horses that he already passed. So what happened there?
I didn't rewatch it this afternoon, but I remember watching it live, and Frankie Torrey makes the lead, and then just he did one of those like sort of drifty Corby. Yeah, it was really
Yes.
bad. Yes, Josh actually has something queued up that's useful. No, it was. I, Frankie Dettori was just an idiot. I don't. I remember watching it live and being like, "Oh my god, this is why this guy lost all of his Godolphin mounts. What the hell is he doing?" It was abysmal and really, really, really bad in the stretch. And he basically couldn't keep the horse straight. And then he did in this sort of like bob and weave thing, and everybody went rolling by him on the outside. From what I remember, it was a while ago though.
I'm watching it now, but go on.
No, so I thought, if your take is that the Warren Point not winning that last was Frankie Dettori's fault, then I think you have to move up Warren Point. But the other horse I'm really interested in this race, if Josh will scroll to the number 2, Strong Quality. I realize we talk about people doing less with more, and we land once again on the trainer that hasn't had a win at Belmont yet. But if you cross off all of the dirt races for strong quality, he's a very, very, very different horse. Um, ever since they put him on turf, he's been really, really freaking good. And his last two races, or I should say his last race, that allowance at Keeneland, make him an absolutely seem to be a pretty substantial player in this field. Um, I kind of wonder if this is the kind of horse that Cassie just being Cassie took forever to figure out that, oh, he's actually a turf horse all along. Um, I think strong quality is kind of interesting in here. He's going to be really forwardly placed. I don't think he'll get loose. I think, Ocean Atlantique's got to go as well, but strong quality is going to be forwardly placed. And if the turf is speed favoring and he takes a little bit of a step forward, I thought, 15-1, he's going to be a pretty major player here.
I love the everyone dunking on Dettori, and now you start talking about a flow horse.
Flow, they all
Everyone's
dunked on
just
Flow.
dunking on
It's
Flow.
great.
Start jumping on Flow.
Where's
we've
Uncle
become
Sully? He's missing out.
Yeah, Uncle
we became
Sully's,
this we
he's
become
in here
this stream
somewhere.
of just dunking on jockeys.
I actually like strong quality in here. I have him as a B.
Yeah.
I kind of saw it the same way you did, Mark. This is definitely a horse that seemed to kind of find a different life as a turf horse. Um, and Flo went wire to wire with this horse last time, so I
So you
think
know
that
he's
he's going to
good.
be. I think, well, yeah. So the horse is good. I will say I'm going to scroll up one. I kind of like this 50-1 horse so
Oh, get
high
out of
here.
here.
I kind of
Yeah,
like
no,
this
no, get out
horse
of here, Josh. You're
for Napal Chatterpool here and
so
JJ.
so what's Naipaul's record in graded stakes?
Who gives a shit? I'm getting 50-1.
Oh,
Like
it's O for what now?
0 for 5.
Maybe in
I
the
have
last
0 for
year.
5 on my
What do you like
PPs.
about the horse besides the E, Josh?
I mean, do I need to like anything else?
He doesn't get to lead here, though.
No, he doesn't. No way.
Are you sure? Because
No. No, no, no,
that's a
no. He doesn't.
big old one up there. I don't know. I see JJ
Uh,
aboard. The horse needs to run the race of his life. Obviously, I'm not going to. Uh,
Josh,
this is a stretch. This is the biggest stretch ever, right? And like I said, I have this horse as a B. Has a couple of nice races over at Aqueduct. And I mean
I,
that. We're gonna say, Mark.
I'm a little disappointed in you because I expected in this race that, I know what the type of horse Josh likes and I know the type of jockey that Josh likes. I figured you would look at Ocean Atlantique and you'd go, oh, Luis Saez getting up on a horse that's an E something, I'm sure, that's got to go. And Louis going to put them all to sleep on the front end. And that's where the Josh horse would be. Not so high, though. Like, I figured Ocean Atlantique would be where you'd go.
Look at. It's 50-1. You guys giving me more shit about taking a 50-1 as a B horse than you did me taking Repo Rocks last race. So I don't know. But I don't know. This is probably more of an underneath type, if anything. If you're playing something horizontal or
We're putting a
vertically,
super high 7.
hope super high 7. But hey, the horse hasn't completely embarrassed himself the last couple times out.
Yeah, he held his own against N1X Allowance Company.
Look at ran fifth in the Man of War 2 years ago
Ran
by 2
fourth to
lengths.
Easter. Oh,
by 2
God.
lengths.
Freaking Easter. Oh, my God.
Look at.
He's
This is
50-1.
He's
If
50 to
you
1.
like him, you're getting paid.
Give me a break here. Like you would think that I'm taking like Cody's Wish or something in this race. Like I don't know. But yeah, I like the 1 and the 2 as kind of your pace horses in this race. In case something New York stupid happens in this race, they're kind of my insurance policies on here.
You don't think the 9 goes?
Maybe. I mean, Optics didn't really think that the 9 was going to be super on the lead.
I couldn't disagree with Optics more. I think
okay.
Ocean Atlantique is.
I'll let Emily know.
I mean, the 3-time
Sure.
size has been on. This horse has been on the lead. It's hard to see him not sending this horse.
What other chances does he have to win? He's got to go. He's got to go and try to control the pace from the front end, which is something Louis does really well. And that's what I was saying. If Josh was on Ocean Atlantique and said, "Oh, geez, I think hey, Louis historically gone on this horse. He tries to go and get brave on the front end," I would have a ton of respect for that. And Emily already called me a square, so you can have her come after me. I'm okay with that.
We're putting the one right in the winner circle, just
Yeah,
like
Oh my
I
God,
hope
we
so.
so
God, I hope so. Like it's just funny. Like
because you're gonna get every part of 50 to 1.
Mark finds every reason to praise JJ, and as soon as I put JJ up on a 50 to 1
you're right
horse,
there.
he's like,
You're right.
"What a garbage jockey! Like this is not. What are you talking
I said
about?"
nothing
Like,
about the jockey. I said simply that the horse just no.
well,
Well,
congratulations, because I mean we all have up to the mark, so it doesn't
Yeah, we
really
do.
matter, right? All right, let's get on to the big
oh,
one
we
here.
made it.
Since
Only 17 minutes over.
yeah, that's not bad.
We're not
Belmont,
17 minutes
Grade
over.
1, and this is the easiest, probably the easiest race of the entire
Oh my
day for
God.
me.
Someone mute
Oh
Josh.
God, he's gonna do it,
I
isn't
got a
he?
single A in this spot, and that's the 4 National Treasure.
Don't want to be sick.
Yeah, I'm sorry guys, but I just have a feeling that this horse is going to get to like the eighth pole, and I don't know, for some reason the horse is going to keep finding on the front end, and for as much as people always say that they want these tappet horses coming off the pace in the Belmont, you want to be forwardly placed historically in the Belmont in the past couple of years. So, I mean, I think National Treasure makes a ton of sense here. There's a couple other horses I do like underneath. I think Road Warrior does bring up, and I didn't mark him down as a B, but I think Hit Show's probably my second choice in this race. He might even be moved up to an A, possibly depending on how the rest of my bets kind of structure out. I think Hit Show ran really, really well in that Kentucky Derby. I know he ran fifth, right? He ran a great fifth, but I'd almost argue that he might have run the second best race in that race next to Two Phils. So, yeah, I have a ton of respect for Hit Show in this spot. I just don't know if there's going to be enough pace up front to really let him kind of show that late kick. I'm like I'm gonna be real with you guys. There's not a ton of pace signed up here. I don't think, and I just have this feeling that you're gonna get National Treasure's gonna get out there and he's gonna do it easy, and he's just gonna be gone, which is exactly how I saw the Preakness kind of shaping up, and it's kind of how I see this one coming up. I like Hit Show in the spot. The Ghost of Forte is interesting to me. The problem with that is that the Ghost of Forte is 5-2, and I just don't feel great taking a real short price on it, but I think I might have to alarm myself here because this might be the biggest defensive B I've ever used.
Oh my
Um,
God. He's
Oh
taking a
God.
Baffert single A and defensive
so
B
defensive
Forte.
B Forte, and I like Arcangelo here, which
Okay.
I think is kind of the wise guy horse I think coming into this race. Um, but I think Arcangelo is kind of like a slightly worse Hit Show. But I think that if anybody is going to run kind of a big race here, I think that taking kind of a non-derby horse here in Arcangelo might make a bit of sense here. So single A to the 4. I like the 3, the 6, and the 7 as Bs. But after getting that vomit-inducing take out, Caleb, where did you kind of land?
Yeah. Just give me a second to gather myself after your picks. But it's like I simultaneously agree with you so much and also hate your picks so much that it's kind of hard to figure out where to go. But we'll start with the positives. I do really like Hit Show, and I thought that I was going to be kind of clever in picking Hit Show in this race, but I feel like half of Twitter is on Hit Show in this race, and I think they're seeing a lot of the same things that you and I saw in the sense that Two Phils probably ran the best race in the Derby, kind of what Road Warrior said in chat, and I agree with him there. He probably did run the best race. I think there's a good argument, like you said, that Hit Show ran the second best race. He made an early move into a blistering pace, and he held on fairly well in a race that totally fell apart. Um, Is he good enough to win right now? No, he needs to improve for sure. But I do think he's interesting in here at 10 to 1. If he does take the money that I expect him to, 5, 6 to 1, that might be a little bit too short. But I do like him in this race. Um, to move on to the negatives, National Treasure, I don't like in this race whatsoever. He had everything his own way in the Preakness: a lone lead, a loose lead, a slow pace, and he still almost got run down by Chad Brown's Water Boy, Blazing Sevens. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see the same setup happening again. I don't see him holding on for an extra, 3/16 in here. I just don't see it. So, yeah, I'm going to be against Blazing Seven, or I'm sorry, I'm going to be against National Treasure. I think with Brad Cox sending out 3, Tap It Choose is probably the one, especially from the rail, that kind of has to go to ensure there's an honest pace for the other 2. I also think that Il Miracolo, who has no shot to win this race, if you're not going to send for the lead, then why are you here? I mean, I have to think this horse gets out there on the front and at least tries to contest the pace. Maybe it doesn't have enough national speed, but it should at least be it trying to be forwardly placed in a race that doesn't have much speed. I mean, if not, why are you here? So yeah. With that being said, I like Hit Show. I don't like National Treasure. I didn't like Forte in the Kentucky Derby, and I like him even less in this race, believe it or not. I don't like him at that distance. I don't like the fact he hasn't improved as a 3-year-old. And I hate the fact that in all of his works, he seems to be kind of struggling over the track. He's had a couple of stumbles. He doesn't really move like a super sound horse should, it seems like. Maybe he's just like not coordinated. I don't know. But I want nothing to do with Forte. For our fantasy draft, Forte was number 15 out of 17 horses on my board. So that should tell you what I think about Forte. I like Hit Show, and I don't think it's a creative pick, but I think Angel of Empire also runs his race very consistent, very very much a horse that just always shows up. So that's the other horse I would use. So I'm going to be 7-8. Not going to have Forte anywhere, and not going to have National Treasure. And yeah, Arcangelo is interesting. Mark probably has a better take on that horse than I do, so I'll pass it to him.
Yeah, no, I really like Arcangelo in this spot. He won the Peter Pan, which is historically the Belmont Prep. I thought he was really impressive in doing so. He was put away in the stretch, and he re-rallied up the rail. I thought it was a really game, really, and I mean, it wasn't put away. He got kind of by a head, and then he re-rallied back. Again, you take it what you will. Is Bishop's Bay really quality that he was coming back on? But I know at least that he handles the surface really well. And, I think he's in really competent hands jockey wise. So, again, there's an argument to be made. Does his pedigree really want to go this far? That's something that you can make. But I really like Arcangelo here. He's probably my top pick. I had liked him going into that Peter Pan, and I don't know, maybe it's confirmation bias, but when you like a horse and they win, and then you tend to like them back, and that's probably my same issue with Angel of Empire, where I really liked him in going to the Risen Star. He won for me at a really nice price, and then I didn't really know what to do with him in the Arkansas Derby, where he again won at a really nice price. You can make the argument that Pratt moved a little bit too late on him in the Derby, and he, I don't know if he ever was getting to Mage, but he may have not have got the best chance to show his best stuff there. He's a really consistent type. He's had a really great campaign. I've been really impressed. He's one of those horses that I thought when I had it right in the Risen Star that I wasn't going to get another shot, and then he kind of keeps showing back up and bringing his A game. So I think Angel of Empire is an interesting player here. But again, I'm picking 2 horses that I don't necessarily know if they want to get this 12 furlong trip. This is I know normally when I approach the Derby, or sorry, I approach the Belmont, I'm looking for horses that I think have the pedigree to get this distance, and I picked 2 horses, and they're probably the only 2 I'm going to use, and I don't necessarily know if I feel super comfortable about them really wanting this trip. But the problem is that I can make that argument about a lot of the other horses in here. Again, Forte, I think, is a horse. Caleb, said exactly kind of where I was going to go with him. I really want to spend this time dunking on Forte and the fact that I thought that the Derby was too far for him. Belmont's definitely too far for him. If you watched his Florida Derby, it looked like he wanted no part of going any further, made it to the wire, and then basically pulled himself up. And I think it's really suspect that he wants to go this far. Um, he'll take a ton of money. I love the fact that he'll take a ton of money because it'll provide value other places. But I think for me, I'm going to try to get a little skinny here and just go through Arcangelo and Angel of Empire, and yeah, that's all I need. I mean, there's a bunch of other players in here. I know I've seen a lot of hype train around somebody like a Tap at Trice or a Tap at Shoes. I actually think if you're looking at pedigree to get the Belmont, I think Tap at Shoes is one of the coolest pedigree horses in the field, but he just really hasn't shown it on the track yet. So yeah, really, you're gonna give me crap about the Tap it over Flower Alley for Belmont with both of them won the Belmont?
I think Tap at Shoes is just a really fucking stupid name.
Okay, it's
I
a
just
stupid.
I don't like the horse
the
because of
spelling
that.
soundboard.
It's a stupid name, but pedigree wise,
Yeah, you want to know something funny? Is I completely forgot that Forte is a violence horse. I thought he was a Tappet this entire time for some reason.
he's not great.
So-
How'd you think he was a? How'd you think
So I'm like sitting here. I'm like, oh yeah, Forte. He'll get the Belmont distance. And I was like, oh, wait a second. And this is exactly why I need PPs, because I just like have like the worst memory when it comes to.
I like the
horses.
B with the X over it.
Yeah. So I think yeah, Forte is gonna.
Josh just suddenly remembering that. Oh, violence horses don't go 12 furlongs. Oh, maybe
violence horses barely go a mile at this point.
Yeah, barely.
I will say I did move Red Route 1. I put him into contention only because if Rosario doesn't win any races up until the Belmont, he's going to win the Belmont.
Oh, for sure.
Because who was that horse he did it on? Sir Winston?
Sir
was
Winston.
That it?
Sir
Winston.
The horse
just like
day at Belmont.
God, dude, this is like but no, I mean, I like honestly, like I had Caleb pull up some overseas odds here because I did see a question from Ryan H. He was asking what odds do we think National Treasure go off at? National Treasure is plus 650 on Bovada, which I think is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty nuts.
That's fair. I will say that's fair.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I mean, I thought he was going to be like 4-1, 3-1 in this race. Honestly, I'm kind of.
When's the last time you saw a Baffert horse win going further than a mile and a 16th? Like
Justify American Pharaoh.
Come on, Mark.
What about?
You asked me a question of the only two horses he knows.
Yeah. What about that turf horse?
Turf
horse. He won a mile.
Yeah,
a mile and a half race. Right? Kingley or the other one that went to Bill Mott for a second.
Dujour.
The one that wasn't his horse, anyways. But okay.
But yeah, I think National Treasure will not be shorter than Tappet Trice, Forte, or Angel of Empire. I think he'll be fourth pick. So I think he'll get an okay price.
So Caleb, stupid question. The 3 Arcangelo by Arrogate. I was kind of shocked. I mean, when I look at pedigrees, I'm not somebody that knows pedigrees inside and out, and I was amazed at Arrogate going this far. That's just a terrible. I mean, the distance Tommies are 260 on him, which implies that this is way further than Arrogates want to go. I just was kind of surprised at that personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It felt weird.
Yeah, Brisnet has Arrogates, average winning distance at 7.8, which is high for a US based sire. That's very high, suggesting that more distance is better. That sort of checks out considering what you think of what Arrogate did for most of his career. And, Unbridled Song is a classic distance sire. So to me, that sort of checks out all the way around. The bottom side of the pedigree, other than Tappet, I'm not familiar with, so I can't really say too much there. But yeah, I think distance will be good for Arcangelo. My bigger question is, it's a lot of development for a lightly raced 3-year-old. Does he really have another move forward in him, or does he maybe go backward off that last race? race. That's
Or
my
does
question.
it, yeah, does he maybe run a couple of races where he's flat? No, no,
Or does
that's
he
my
flatten out and probably needs a step forward here, I think. And
needs
does
a
he
little
get it?
time, yeah.
I don't
But
know.
again, I think I'm willing to take 8 to 1 on him to find
Oh,
out
for
in
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my angle more than anything else. Yeah, no, okay, cool. So we agree. Cool.
What is the? I mean, I think I know what you guys are going to say, but the consensus on Tappet Trice. I mean, nobody talked about him, so I assume that nobody really likes him. But he's that horse that sort of fits the cliche of like that's my Belmont horse before the Derby runs. Like he's a big, grinding, long striding kind of horse that
He's
is not very agile, needs a lot of encouragement to really get into stride. He feels like a Belmont horse, but the issue I think a lot of people have is that the Kentucky Derby set up great for him. He had no noticeable excuse, and he still ran pretty poorly given the setup of the race. I mean, are y'all forgiving of that race? Do you not want him at all? What do you think of him in here?
I think my biggest issue with him is that he's, in his last 6 races hasn't figured out how to get out of the gate. And again, he's a big lumbering horse. He definitely carries a lot of weight. So is it just the fact of it takes him longer to get into stride because he's, a little bit on the portly side of things? Yeah, I think that's probably valid. It's just the fact of, I know Josh had mentioned before Belmont. We think longer races, so therefore the mindset goes to, oh, closers do well here. That's just not the case at Belmont. The Belmont Stakes tends to be won by horses that are on or just slightly off the pace. I think he's going to have a lot of work to do late, and I just don't know if the pace complexion necessarily sets up to really give him that trip that he needs to do his best stuff. And again, it kills you because it's one of those things you look at and you're like, oh, well, he has a hard time getting out of the gate. Well, put a better jock on him. Well, I can't think of a better jock to get out of the gate than Luis Saez. So he's got arguably the best jock to fit his problem, and yet he still can't get out of it. Still can't kind of get rolling early. I mean, like I know that Tampa Derby, we were all because we were always chatting in our group chat. Halfway down the backstretch, we're like, oh my god, he's not even going to hit the super. Like this was like he was out the back and he made this just massive move. Now, what was he beating? I don't know. The classic car washes of the world, right? But like I don't know. He's a hard horse for me to get to. I especially at that price. If I was getting there's a certain price where he becomes interesting. It's just not 3 to 1.
That's
I
fair.
think that's the big problem, right? Is I like this horse is just going to take a shit ton of money. Um, if this horse wins, like I'm not going to be like, oh my god, like I cannot believe this horse won. Um, it's going to be more like I cannot believe they bet this horse down to 9 to 5 and this horse won. And he's going to win by like a nose, right, to some like 20 to 1 horse or something stupid, and then everyone's going to be upset. Um, yeah, I just don't see it. Like the horse has got gait problems, and like the I think like not conventional thinking, but I think like people are gonna logically think, well, it doesn't matter if he misses the break because he's got so much extra distance, to make up for it. But it's just historically, it just these types of horses, like these deep closers that completely miss the break, do not win. Do not win the Belmont unless they have Joel Rosario aboard. So I just don't like. I just don't. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it here for Tapatresh. I think he's gonna leave himself too much work to do, which is exactly the same thought I had in the Derby. Um, I'm not to say that he's not going to win one or two big races possibly this year, but they're going to have to be complete setups. And I think Mark pointed out he did get his setup completely in the Derby, and he didn't. He finished seventh, right? He didn't finish like third or second. He finished seventh. And people are gonna come over here and bet this horse down to even money, or two to
No,
one or
get the fuck
something.
out of here. He's
Isn't
not.
it?
He's
Was
gonna
he two to
be.
one overseas, or was that Forte that was 2 to 1?
That's Forte. He's
Okay,
like 7 to 2, 4 to 1.
yeah. So I don't know. I just don't have any desire at the
Yeah.
price. But
And like I'm not gonna talk somebody into a 4 to 1 necessarily, but like my argument with Tappet Trice was that he was never a horse that felt like he was going to be successful in the Derby, just given he's not agile. He can't, make quick moves, accelerate, duck in and out, knife round horses. He's a lumbery, grindery kind of horse. and he feels like a Belmont horse. He does, and I know that Derby was bad, but I just can't shake the fact that, I mean, okay, historically, yeah, Belmont has played to speed, but you also have, last year's winner O'Donegal came from well off the pace. You had Sir Winston a couple of years ago. You had Taprit, Creator. I mean, there's been a number of off the pace runners that have done well, and I don't think the pace is going to be super slow. I don't think National Treasure gets out there super loose. I don't know what to think of Tapit Trace, but he's the kind of horse that I will feel dumb if he beats me. I'm not really as adamantly against him as I am like Forte, for example.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm probably equally against them. Forte is the horse I'm most against in the race. Tapit Trice, slightly less probably. But I will say that I do think Tapit Shoes is somewhat interesting at an absolutely stupid price given the pedigree. So, although it is a dumb name, completely agree. Dumb name.
It's a stupid name. I hate
It's
the
a
name so
stupid
much.
name. Yeah,
I
stupid.
love the comment by Sentient. Tapit Trice is definitely a bicycle horse, but Science is the rider to pedal in. That's so true.
That's very legit. Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Well, that's gonna do it for us. Obviously, thank you guys for sticking with us. We went a little bit over, but you guys stayed with us, so obviously you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure you like and subscribe. I know we don't ask you that all the time, but if you could do that, appreciate it. We'll be around. Yeah, there's David Barista, pomegranate and lemonade. Do a little.
Is it 1, 1, and 2? So 2
It's
parts
2 and
bourbon,
1. It's
1.
two parts. Two parts lemonade, 1 part pomegranate, 2 parts bourbon. I did 2 parts bourbon. It's one and a
Oh, 2,
half
1, and 1. Oh, okay.
ounces.
So it's 2 on the
So it's
lemonade.
2 ounces, 1 ounce, 2 ounces.
You probably want
But
something. Yeah, you were saying you want like a little bit
I mean,
more aggressive alcohol,
I
a little
really
more
like
cut.
Wild Turkey when it comes
The
to
one on
bourbon
one. Yeah,
cocktails
yeah.
because it just cuts through a little bit more. I just had a bottle of Buffalo Trace open, so I used that. But Wild Turkey would be fine. So.
Hey, Road Warrior,
Um,
you're going to be on track on Saturday.
and
Just
hopefully we run tomorrow.
PM me.
Hopefully we run
Yeah,
tomorrow.
hopefully we run tomorrow. Let's see. It's looking better that the numbers, the particle content numbers are a lot lower. We'll see. It would not. I mean, I think it's probably 50-50 to run tomorrow.
Are
And
you
but
are you in West Virginia tomorrow, Caleb?
I fly back tomorrow evening, like 6
Tomorrow
o'clock.
evening,
Yeah.
after Belmont, hopefully.
Right around probably, well, about 6 o'clock. So whatever
Yeah.
time that is on the looks like last race, give or take, between the last 2 races. So right around the Gold Cup / Intercontinental.
So I guess what's the backup plan? Is it Ellis Park?
I don't know if
Saturday,
there is a
you
backup
and
plan.
Pops.
We got to just do the rain dance at
Oh
Belmont.
man. All right. Well, obviously check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are here, and we will catch you guys later.